So my work was forgiving my father, forgiving my ex-husband, forgiving myself for not loving myself well, for allowing things to happen in my marriage that should not have happened had I loved myself well. So in that process of forgiveness and in that process of healing myself, I found other forms of Reiki. I found crystals. I found um, a lot of visualization. My desire was just, this is not going to happen again. This kind of person is not going to show up again in my life. So that was the desire,
Mhm.
was rather than jumping from one relationship to the next, I said, you have work to do. You don't want this again. So I went back and I did the work.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Rachel Isabela on. I'm really excited to have a conversation with her. She is a medical intuitive and Reiki healer, and I've always wanted somebody on to talk about Reiki. So, Rachel, you're going to be that person. So I really appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe, for having me.
I dig in the same way with most people. It doesn't matter the conversation that we're having. And I go back and I tend to ask a little bit about yourself when you were younger. So much well before you got into Reiki or intuitive work in any way. So just to kind of compare your life as to who Rachel is now and who Rachel was as a child.
I grew up in the 80s. Yeah, mom, dad, older sister, South Florida, Jewish family. There's not much there. I think that, yeah, no, personal growth probably started for me around 17 or 18. Yeah, the origin of my story is probably finding Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, and immediately believing the whole concept of your biography becomes your biology. So those things that you think and believe and tell yourself over and over again, they will somehow show up in your body, and that illness and disease and all of those things have an emotional origin to it. I didn't have to be convinced of it. I read the book. I immediately said, "Oh my God, this is exactly the way things are."
Mm.
So it resonated. I became a nurse. I'm I respect and I really am interested in the science and the pathology of, nursing and disease and all that. But there's also this element of, well, how did it end up there? Before it becomes a cancer, before it becomes a gallstone, which was what I had, what preceded it? So I think my first Reiki class was 20 years ago, probably 20 years ago. That was Reiki 1, and then I did Reiki 2, and then I did Karmic Reiki, Reiki Marielle, and then I also did Access Bars, which is not Reiki, but it's another healing modality. Oh, and then I did Crystal Reiki as well. I'm much more interested in not, I guess, it's not that I'm not interested in healing the illness. I'm interested in helping a person find out what happened to you before this became a physical manifestation.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
No, that's really interesting. So, a couple things. So, I appreciate you answering that. So, one of the reasons I bring up the childhood and where people are at as
yeah,
they're younger, one of the main reasons is because there was obviously some kind of shift that happens at somebody's part of life, whether it's an NDE, whether it's, maybe they go to church and they see something or they just something happens in their life that triggers something. It seems like I'm glad you mentioned you can heal your life, this book that you read that
yeah,
clearly opened you up to something there. Now, I guess the reason I ask that is because there's at some point a shift, and some kids walk around and they're kind of in touch with nature and they're more spiritual by nature. So, and some aren't, and sometimes it takes something that happens in their life to shift them on that course. Kind of, it's almost like I was just kind of living my life, having relationships and
yeah,
normal lifestyle, normal religious beliefs, and then something happens. That's
yeah,
why I bring it up. So I just wanted to clear why I asked that, but you're saying around
yeah, that makes sense.
17. At 17, you switched?
Well,
Okay.
well, at 17, I probably read Louise Hay, but at 14, I read Dr. Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And again, I didn't have to be convinced of it. I took it at its word. A lot of people were like, well, he's obviously making this up. He's a psychiatrist and he's talking about hypnosis and how crazy. And I didn't. So, and religion never satisfied me. So I think
Mm,
I had a spiritual, like, little nugget in me where if if a book came into my hands that had to do with a psychic or a medium or energy work or the other side, the afterlife, all of that stuff, I I took it as, well, this is accurate. This is what I know to be true.
Hmm.
And it satisfied me in a way that religion never did. Um, so I don't think it was one thing. I think I was maybe just wired that way,
Hmm.
where something in me went looking for spirit rather than religion. Um, yeah,
So you were curious, and even by you said 14. So at four, I would still consider someone a child at 14. I know they're kind of going through teenage years. I have a couple teenagers myself, so they think they're adults, but they're still children kind of situation. So
yeah,
at that age, you were already inquisitive around the nature of spirituality. If you were getting into things like many lives, many masters. I haven't seen that. I haven't read that book, but you were already looking to that. And some kids are just looking on TikTok. Like they're just like, hey, what kind of,
yeah.
they're not really paying much attention. And some are. So there was always something deep in you. And then you get into nursing. And that must have been
Mhm.
interesting because now you're in the medical scientific world with obvious ambitions or beliefs or understandings of more of a spiritual nature as well. So I've been told by other nurses that sometimes they're taught some of these things, but usually it's not. It's all science based. And a lot of nurses who come in contact with a lot of illness or around a lot of people who work in palliative care, let's say, they start to realize things throughout their career. So they start in their career a certain way, there's a
Yeah,
specific area, and then they start to kind of see more and more indications that we're a little bit more than we are. And they get
yeah.
more. I've had that come up. Did that start to happen, or I'm trying to see where the Reiki came into play. You said it was over a gallstone. You said there was, or you were having, was it gallstones you
Oh,
had? Sorry, I'm a little bit
no,
confused with how the
I took,
storyline happened.
sorry. No, I took a Reiki class 20 years ago just because my mom's friend was a Reiki ma is a Reiki master. And I've always been interested in energy and all that woo-woo stuff. And so I took it without really realizing something else could come of it. I wasn't a nurse for very long. I was only a nurse for 2 years because I moved from South Florida to Argentina, and Argentina did not validate my license.
Mm,
While I was a nurse, I worked in a psychiatric facility, which was not fun, and it did not suit my personality at all. And I was the med nurse. If you've ever seen in a movie, like a nurse opens up like a door, a window, and everyone lines up, and she gives you a little cup and
yeah.
a thing of water, and that was me. Um, but I would hear the stories of these people in the psych ward, and there was so much pain. There was so much trauma from childhood that I didn't like the idea of just giving meds.
Hmm.
So understanding understanding the pain and what that pain does to you was much more interesting to me than handing out meds.
Hmm.
Um, so then, yeah, I moved to Argentina. I was no longer a nurse, and I developed gallstones. And I immediately went to my Louise Hay book to see how the hell this showed up in my body. What is this?
Hmm.
And it said bitter thoughts about the past. I said, oh, okay, this is my father. This is my dad. Um, I had an emotionally absent dad. He lived in the same house as us, but he wasn't really present, which left me feeling very unworthy and unloved and unseen. And there was this like, anger and resentment, and it had manifested itself in my body as two gallstones and having my gallbladder removed. So when I saw that, I said, okay, I need to work on this. I need to forgive this because I don't want something showing up in my body like this again. I also left my ex-husband because I knew that the pain of my dad's indifference had created a self-esteem in me that had attracted this wrong person, this toxic relationship. So my work was forgiving my father, forgiving my ex-husband, forgiving myself for not loving myself well, for allowing things to happen in my marriage that should not have happened had I loved myself well. So in that process of forgiveness and in that process of healing myself, I found other forms of Reiki. I found crystals. I found um, a lot of visualization. My desire was just, this is not going to happen again. This kind of person is not going to show up again in my life. So that was the desire,
Mhm.
was rather than jumping from one relationship to the next, I said, you have work to do. You don't want this again. So I went back and I did the work. Yeah, of
I
forgiving and healing.
I think it's incredible that uh, okay, I'm really loving this, and I'll tell you why. Because being a nurse, right? You're
Hmm.
trained scientifically. There's nothing wrong with that. We need science, but some people can get completely indoctrinated, like they can get completely stuck in that place. So when people get illnesses, they don't look at it from a different lens. It's always, okay, this just happened to you. This just
Yeah,
randomly happened, or genetics, or all these different things, right? And I'm not saying in any way that we aren't genetically predetermined to have more of an opportunity to get something. I do believe that, but I also believe that a
yeah,
lot of what's coming into our lives in regards to illness and sickness comes from an energetic place as well. And
yeah,
I know this. I mean, I think many people even listening could probably think of times in their life where they're going through something and something happens and they go, "Oh yeah, I was under mass amounts of stress," or it might be after the stress, because there's like this weird thing that our bodies do, that we go through this mass amount of stress and then finally it calms down and then something develops. So it's almost like there's like this, you have to remember what's going
yeah,
on. It's not always right in that moment. And
yeah,
then you have to kind of become more aware of what that is, right? So you were, I just wanted to say that because it's great to know that you being a nurse, you were also looking at the body as something as a whole, like bigger than just this slab of meat walking around the
yeah,
earth. And you were able to kind of determine there's other ways to kind of
yeah.
heal and get into this. So you get into Reiki, and so when you said, I think you said Reiki one, I'm assuming this is kind of is this like is that what you take when you're wanting to teach it or use or practice it, or
No, there's
how
no,
does
there's
that work?
three different levels. There's Reiki 1, Reiki 2, and Master Reiki. A Master Reiki can teach Reiki and can open up the chakras in your hand to allow the energy to start flowing through it. I'm not a Master Reiki yet. I did want to go back for a second, if I can,
Sure.
where I think it's Louise Hay who said it, but it's someone in this whole thing of the things showing up in your body, where people are very used to, if they get an illness, they say the universe gave this to me or God gave this to me, and now the doctor is going to fix it. So they are completely removing themselves from both the creation of it and the healing of it.
Mm.
It's this gave it, and this will fix this pill, this doctor will fix it. And that is a very victim mentality. And that to be empowered means that you take responsibility. I think that empowerment is a very like clickbaity word. People love to use it, but all it really means is that you took responsibility. And there's nothing clickbaity or sexy about that, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. And I think a lot of people have trouble taking responsibility when something has happened to them because it's much easier to fall into victim, right? Because it's easier to
Mhm.
be a victim. I've been there. Like I'm not
Oh,
saying,
very easy.
it's just very
Oh,
easy
me
to be like,
too.
I'm a victim and this happens to me and it just keeps happening to me. Instead of
Yeah,
taking responsibility and say, this is my life. I'm going to find out what's
yeah,
causing this. Where's this coming from? Why do I continue to do this? Which energy is causing me to
yeah,
kind of go down this road? And you can do that internally. You don't have to go and share that with the world. That can be if that's hard for you to do, but do it internally and see what happens,
absolutely.
right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to speak on that, but I don't want to keep jumping over, if you have something to add there.
No, just the idea that empowerment is not something that happens to you, it's something that you work towards. It's something that you create for yourself. So in order to be empowered, which so many people want to be, you need to climb out of that hole of victimhood and do the work and go through it.
Mm. And
Yeah.
when you take Reiki one, you're just learning about how Reiki works. If we can dig in a little bit about that, I did have one Reiki session years ago, and it was during something I was going through, and I've recalled it on a few of my episodes, and it was such a bizarre moment because I didn't actually believe in it. I just did it because I'm a spiritual person, and I was like, well, let's see what this is all about. And I went in, I talked about what was going on, and I said, do I close my eyes? Do I keep my? She's like, you can do whatever you want. It's completely up to you. And it was a hands-off kind of situation. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to close my eyes because I feel weird. And so I closed my eyes, and I remember kind of being in this state of just sitting there thinking, okay, I don't know what she's doing. And I remember at one point, and sometimes I look back at my shows I talk about, and I think, why did I go on record saying this stuff? Because I sound crazy, but this is actually what happened. And whether I was in some kind of in between dream and awake state consciously, I don't know. So I can't say that. But I remember I was laying there, and I remember at one point I peeked down at her, and she was down near my feet, down my legs, and I went, okay. And the next moment, I remember feeling almost like up near my head, neck area, almost like if someone were to pull air through me. I don't know how else to describe it. It felt like kind of like a heaviness release or something coming out of my head. And I was like, why am I feeling that? She's down by my feet, right? And this kept going on. I was like, why am I feeling that? She's down by my feet. And I opened my eyes slightly and she was right up above me. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, and the reason I bring that up is my eyes were closed. I didn't actually know physically where she was in the room. As far as my understanding was, she was down by my feet. And I was feeling a sensation from my head, from my neck. In that moment, like I completely shifted my thoughts on Reiki. I went, whoa, that's
Yeah.
weird. So I don't know what she's doing. Like, there's no she didn't have it. It was just a room with a bed, and there was no like extra gadgets or fans or anything doing anything to make me
No.
feel that sensation. So I immediately thought, wow, okay, something happened there. And I do remember that whatever I was dealing with, I can't remember what it was, that it did clear up about 2, 3 weeks after that. And I think it was, like I was going through anxiety. I think it had to do around heart palpitations or something. It was something that I was just really struggling with,
Yeah.
and so I was kind of a believer right away in it. I don't understand it, and I'm wondering if you can at all give a little information on how Reiki works, because I don't, to the best of your knowledge, like, am I explaining it right? Because I feel like I'm not, but it feels like an energy movement or something.
I'm probably not the best person to talk about like the history of Reiki. The way I understand it is universal energy that comes through your hands. So a master Reiki will do something to open up the chakras in your hands because we have chakras everywhere. Most people know the seven main ones, the crown, the third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. But we have chakras, we have more chakras than that. So a master Reiki will open up your hands so that energy flows through it. And then they will teach you Reiki symbols and the corresponding word to say to bring a certain energy in. So Reiki 1 has a symbol, Reiki 2 has, I think, two, Reiki Mariel has three. So depending on the Reiki that you do, you're going to be taught a symbol and some words that go with it. You're not supposed to say these words or these symbols to anybody. They're online. But you're supposed to like keep it quiet because not everyone is going to be using it in the correct way.
Hmm.
It's just universal energy flowing through your hands. Now, I think that a lot of people, I mean, I respect Reiki obviously because I've gotten certified in a lot of things. But for instance, my ex-husband with his first son, my stepson who's now like 26, when his son was a baby and he would be having like stomach problems, he'd have a stomach ache. My ex-husband would instinctually just put his hands on his belly and say, go away, go away, go away, go away. Like any parent would in wanting to remove pain from someone.
Hmm.
So I don't believe that healing happens only if you have a Reiki certificate. I think people come into this world very intuitive and very connected to their side and are just healers. And then I think that there are people who need the structure of school and the certification to say, I know how to do this, I am trained to do this. But I don't think it is the only way that people can heal.
Hmm.
I don't want anyone to think, oh, now I have to sign up for Reiki. If you want to sign up for Reiki, that's fantastic. But there are other modalities and or maybe just, just working on your intuition and realizing that you can heal in other ways. But yeah, that's Reiki in a nutshell. It's universal energy that comes through the palm of your hands.
So I appreciate that. So the idea is that if we haven't, let's go back to what you had. You had these gallstones, and that if someone were to be treating you using Reiki, would we be trying to move energy away from that area? Or like, is it just kind of like because obviously if energy gets stuck, I've heard that term before, energy stuck. Or, is it just kind of a releasing? You're trying to release that energy because I know we're energy. Like any skeptic out there
Yeah,
can't tell me we're not energy. I mean, I can literally put my hands around my body and I can literally
yeah.
feel a magnetism going around. So I know we have energy just bursting through us. So, is the idea that it gets stuck in certain areas? What is it, a releasing of emotion or releasing of energy? What is that?
I guess that's hard to explain because, for instance, once I had gallstones, I needed the surgery. It wasn't going to be healed another way. Louise Hay would say that I'm wrong because she was diagnosed with, I think, ovarian cancer or uterine cancer, and she healed herself. Her story is in her book, You Can Heal Your Life. Um, I kind of think that once something has been created in your body, it's kind of too late, and you need, um, Western medicine. God, that's so hard. That's really hard to answer.
Hmm. I can understand why you're having trouble with that. That's why I'm never somebody to say, "Hey, just let it, get some Reiki and hopefully you heal." And because you have to be
Yeah,
really careful of that. We have medicine for a reason. We have science for a reason. So, and
absolutely.
I've had other NDEers who kind of took a both approach type situation when they were healing from something. But it sounds like Reiki and energy work, from what I'm getting from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what you get into if maybe you're trying, it's kind of like preemptive. You're trying to avoid getting those serious issues. And maybe you're just
Yeah,
starting to feel like something's off. Your body isn't sick, but it's like something's giving you indications. So let's, get treat. Let's, because then you're stopping it from manifesting further, or even just as a regular
yes.
kind of someone goes to massage therapy. Some people would maybe go to Reiki just to kind of clear their energy.
Yeah.
Is that more what it's around?
Acupuncture. Yeah. All kind of, yeah. Yeah. The way that I do it is that is what it is. It's the medical intuition comes in where I scan your body, obviously with someone's permission. I scan your body and I feel where in your body there is a block. And the block can show up as a cold spot, or it can show up as like if my hand is vibrating, all of a sudden there's like huge vibration, like ants crawling all over my hand. And for instance, if there's a cold spot over your throat, there's something that you're not saying. There's an authenticity that's missing that you're, not saying. If it's over your lungs, the lungs represent grief. If it's over your liver, that represents rage. If it has to do with your knees or your feet, it's about fear of taking a step forward. So the way that I do it is I combine the medical intuition where I scan your body, I find where it is, and I do a healing session so that it does not become a physical manifestation in your body.
Mhm.
The difference with a lot of people think that everything that comes into your body, like a disease or illness or cancer or whatever, is absolutely related to, a trauma from childhood. But then someone else will say, well, what about a baby? A baby that just came in? Well, that baby might be dealing with not something from this life, but something that's karmic, something that happened in the womb, something that happened in a past life. So I don't like absolute statements when it comes to healing or Reiki or things showing up in our body because we don't know everything. And
Mhm.
it could be something from this life, it could be something from a past life. And I think that if you know the origin, I think it's easier to heal because you can do what I did and you can forgive the people that hurt you.
Mhm.
If you don't know where it comes from, then that gets a little trickier. If you don't know that it came from a past life where someone did you wrong in this situation or whatever, then you're like, well, who am I supposed to forgive? What am I supposed to do?
Mhm.
So there isn't an absolute, I guess,
Mhm. No, I love that. And
which isn't
actually,
probably what people want to hear.
no, no, absolutely. But I think what it does, it kind of goes full circle here because, and this is one of the reasons why I've recently just been certified in hypnotherapy, but more past life regression hypnotherapy. So I'm getting really interested in it. I haven't been practicing it yet, but I'm really interested
Fantastic.
in that and some
Yes.
energy work and stuff. And the reason is because I think I feel like that's kind of a long haul journey for me to kind of get into. I think if you can work with a hypnotherapist, if you work with someone who works in energy, and try to bring to light, those circumstances, whether you go to a past life regressionist who can bring out a past life, because then it might make sense because now you've seen something, right? Or you've visualized or felt something that it could actually be
Yep.
involved with. So now you can work with it. So I think it's I don't think it's just going to one person and figuring it like it's kind of some inner
Yeah.
work if you're dealing with something. So,
Exactly.
mhm, yeah. Yeah. So if someone's
There's so many
coming,
healing modalities out there. But if that's what you do, if you do hypnotherapy, you need to read Many Lives, Many Masters. This is a psychiatrist who did hypnotherapy, and he had a client of his who came in just riddled with anxiety and phobias and problems. And he takes her back, I think, into childhood, and he says, "Okay, can you go a little bit further back?" And she jumps into a past life. And he's like, "What the hell just happened?" And she's
Mhm,
describing the way she's dressed and she's describing where she is. And she says, "This person over here is my boyfriend in this current life." And like his world kind of split open. This is a doctor, this is a psychiatrist that
mm,
is getting into woo-woo stuff. And so when he published this book, I think his community turned against him.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and then he went on to write many books, but that could probably just blow your mind, that book.
Well, I've written it down and I've circled the book. When I hear that's one of the blessings I have with talking to people like yourself, is I get to hear all the knowledge that people have gained through other people. And so I'll definitely look into
Yeah,
it. With hypnotherapy, it is a practice that you have to really, you have to work within, and it's the beginning phase of what I'm in. I've just really always been interested. And I had a past life regression years ago, and it blew my mind. So it's always something that's kind of in the back of my mind that I wanted to kind of look into further because I think it can help a lot of people. And then Reiki, so
yeah,
see, I'm seeing Reiki right now after talking with you. It's really put perspective on some things more for me that I think it can be healing for sure. And I think in the case that I went years ago, I think I was at a place where nothing serious was going on, but I knew something energetically felt off. So I was able to go in and kind of work with that at the time. So I think that's a great place to start when someone's feeling
yeah.
that. But you can't, go and expect a complete miracle right away because, like you said, if you've been manifesting this for a long time and you're in a place where you need, Western medicine, it's probably good to look at those options too to see how you heal in both spiritually and physically, right? Because now your body's in a physical um, depletion of sorts. There's something that needs to be healed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Reiki is a great thing to have done when you've left a bad relationship or a toxic job, or yeah, when you want to clear the energy, when you want someone to just sweep over your body and remove where things have collected or gotten stuck because you don't want to carry these things into your new life, whatever that might be. I think Reiki is a fantastic thing to have done in that situation.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that would really speak to the vast majority of people, vast majority of people that are generally healthy that are going through that, and including the people who maybe are dealing with something. I think it's good for both, but I think it's just the expectations should be that, to clear something up before anything manifests itself worse. That's what I'm getting. It's because I was always looking at, I don't know if you ever heard of, oh, what's his name? Doctor, um, it's not coming to my mind, but he deals with, um, tension myositis syndrome. Tension, basically, it's when you put rage. If you're walking around with internal rage all the time, it can manifest itself in
Yeah.
pain. And so I've dealt with a lot of hand issues over the years playing guitar my whole life. And I think the more area of work that you put your body or the more trauma you put your body into, it has more susceptibility to dealing with things, whether it's carpal tunnel, whether it's all these things. But I think energy has a lot
Sure.
to do with it because if you're tense all the time and your energy body is constantly tensing, that's because whenever I go through high stresses in my life, that ailment flares up worse, even if it's a little bit after everything calms down. But there's always this marker and I think if I can give any advice to anybody out there, it'd be that as we get further in life and we understand more about our own body and our own human and who we are, so when we're going through those trauma moments, that's when you should seek out people like yourself, people who are working with energy, because then maybe at that time you can calm, kind of like calm the fire, calm the flames down before it gets too bad, right? So it's just keeping everything calm while you're going through it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I respect doctors that when you say, should I be trying something else? And they'll say, absolutely, aside from chemo, go and do your acupuncture, go and do your Reiki, because they respect that as well. So let's say I meet someone and they have cancer or gallstones or whatever, and they need to have Western medicine do something for them. The Reiki can help with pain. The Reiki can help you discover the origin of how that happened. And so then it helps you heal the emotional part while the doctors or the medicine heals the physical part. So just because something has manifested, it doesn't mean that Reiki can't help. It might not be able to heal the thing, but it can help you heal the emotional or spiritual side of it by talking to someone and by getting, your energy cleared. Um, yeah, I wouldn't tell people to shy away from it just because they already have a diagnosis. They can definitely use it in conjunction with everything else that they're throwing at the problem.
I want to know, how do people get in contact with the work that you do? Is there like a web, do you have a website? Like what kind of, where are you
Yeah, I
currently
can
at
send
in
you the
regards
link.
to the work? Yeah, is there a main
Yeah,
website?
I have a website. Yeah, it's not really a website. It's just like a site where I have my stuff. I have my workbooks and my journals, and I have my healing session there where people can sign up for that. And it includes the body scan. It includes the healing session, which is done long distance anywhere in the world, and then 2 sessions with me where I teach you some metaphysical exercises that will kind of lock in the healing that was just done. So I don't like leave you on your own.
Oh,
I
wow.
do I do check in with you and teach you some extra stuff.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I always have one main big ending to my show always with everybody I talk to, and it's a deep question, but again, it's it's not, you haven't had an NDE, you haven't had any, we haven't talked about any spiritual experiences you had in your life or anything like that. And some people do have these things and they don't talk about it. And um, but I always dig into this question at the end of each episode. And it's really to ask you,
Okay.
from you, being someone who, you said you grew up with a relatively normal childhood, you had changes happen over time. 14, you were more inquisitive about the nature of who we are. You started looking into different things, but then you became a nurse. So you've seen kind of both worlds. You've seen the physical world of ailments and people and
Yeah.
what they've dealt with, and you also become more spiritually connected. My question is, why do you think, in a whole, as a human being, what is our main purpose as to why you believe we come here?
I think we come here to love, to learn, and to grow. That is um, when people say, what is the meaning of life? I think the meaning of life is to love, to learn, and to grow. Every day, love more, learn something, grow in your spirituality or your, personal development. It doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter if you, like Oprah, are this philanthropist that builds schools in South Africa. You don't have to do that. You don't have to wish for that kind of platform or that amount of money to to change the world. I think I love the idea that I can break it down to love, learn, and grow because it has nothing to do with your profession, your marital status, where you live in the world. It's just every day, how can I love someone? How can I live? Yeah, what can I learn in compassion and empathy? Yeah, to me, that's the simplest um, and yet most profound way to have a purpose in life. People keep saying, what's my purpose? Just love, learn, grow.
And I think that a lot of times if we put ourselves in that
Isn't that
energy
easy?
place, it's so easy. It feels
Yeah.
so easy. And what it does is it takes a lot of stress off of trying to figure it out, because if you're in that state, I think the things that you're meant to be doing in this life just naturally will occur, or the th people that are supposed to show up in your life will show up. Those type of places, because you're living so authentically. So I totally agree with
Mhm.
everything you said there. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are like, I'm a barista. How am I changing the world? Are you loving on your clients, on your customers? Are you loving on your neighbor? Are you growing by reading something new or watching a documentary that expands yeah, I
Hmm.
don't think it has to be difficult at all.
Yeah.
And it takes away a lot of the stress.
Yeah.
Um, I think it creates peace in me. As long as I'm doing that, I'm doing okay.
It's funny how you said
Yeah.
barista, because I think back, just one last little comment here is I have a local coffee place that we go to, and usually when you go through and you order your coffee or your drinks or whatever, your tea or whatever, people are like, okay, hurry up, and they go, 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 go. But there's this one particular guy, and he's probably in his mid 30s, and he's just tattoos everywhere, long hair, looks like a musician, and he is always just, hey, like, and he's just very high energy, and he's like, have a good day, and he acts very, yeah, almost like childlike, but he's really like nice, and every time I go through and I have him, I drive away like in a good mood. So it's funny, and it
Mhm.
makes the hair on my arms go up. I always say this in my shows, my hair on my arms go up. It's like confirmation to me. It's like
Yes.
that's just a moment. He's giving energy over, and now I'm driving off with this different feeling I did before I showed up, and it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
So you're able to affect
Yeah.
people more than you know in any job possible. So I love how you put that.
Same. Same with like a bus driver. Like people say, oh, doctors save lives, nurses save lives. If you get on the bus every day and your bus driver is like, good morning, Joe, how's it going? How's the wife? How's the kids? Whatever. And he's someone that around Christmas you think of and you say, I'm going to give my bus driver a gift. I see him every day. He wishes me well. You've created a relationship that, he's no one's saving any lives, but yet we're all affecting each other's lives. So yeah, yeah.
And
Barista.
it all comes back to energy, and that's why you work in Reiki. So I appreciate so much you coming on today, Rachel. This has been
Oh,
a really amazing conversation. I
yeah.
always encourage everybody listening to check out the people I speak with. So we will put all your links in the description. I always turn to the audience to say, please continue to like, share, and subscribe. If you've liked what you've heard today, please hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being on the Soul Inspired.
Thank you so much, Joe. I loved being here.
So